Hello and welcome to this edition of the Central Virginia Sport Performance Podcast. My name is Jay DeNeo, and today I have the distinct pleasure of talking with 2015 presenter and Director of Applied Performance at Baylor University, Andrew Althoff. Guys, Andrew is really one of the best dudes when it comes to sport performance in the country. Super guy, super knowledgeable, and you'll know in these 30-minute talk like how awesome of a cat this guy is. Doesn't hold any punches with the talk, really gets into the role when it comes to the applied performance side at Baylor, and really talks about some neat stuff when it comes to the monitoring. You know, a lot of people think when you get all these toys and you get all this technology that it means all of a sudden things are going to change 180 degrees. Well, Andrew gets into some really neat stuff with how they look at it, how they communicate things, the role of the coaching staff and how they work together, and even more so the role of his job when it comes to the relationships with the student athletes. I really hope you guys enjoy the talk. I had a blast, and I'm really excited to have him here on campus in a couple weeks. I do. I hope you guys like it, and let's get right to it. What is it that excites you the most about what's going on at Baylor right now?
Um, Man, for me, I think our education program that we have for our student athletes, I think is really good, and I think that's what excites me the most. So, a lot of people are doing the athlete monitoring. I think what we're able to do as far as being able to take that information and give it back to the athletes and help them improve their own performance, I think is something that's really exciting to us as a staff. And so, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, but we've been monitoring for 2 years, 2 years with football. We're transitioning to some Olympic sports here this last year, and really gonna try to do a good chunk of sports with it, which kind of presents its own unique challenges because you're dealing with different sports, different athletes, male, female, different demands, and it'll get pretty crazy. So you can't have a cookie cutter approach, but basically, kind of what we did is at the end of the 2013 year, we had all of our wellness data, our questionnaires, our Omega Wave data, and our GPS data from football, and we built a relationship with our stats department on campus, a guy by the name of Ben Bernard, and had him run our stats. And we saw some things that we thought were very interesting, but we didn't tell him what those were. We kind of wanted him to run the data himself, come up with his own connections, and then kind of see if they matched up. And they did, which was cool. But I think the coolest part was to really see some of the things that we found from a performance standpoint, like what really influenced these guys' performance. Because we're talking about Division I athletes, and you got to be really careful reading some of these studies because it's not necessarily with high level guys. I mean, these are high level guys that we're working with. So to see what really affects them, and some of it's common sense. But I still think it was interesting to see because, again, like it's our athletes, it's our guys and our girls, and not somebody else's. So I think the biggest one for us was nutrition. Nutrition had a huge impact on their performance, and nutrition was tied really closely to sleep. So when guys and girls ate better throughout the day, they slept better at night. When they were less sore, they slept better at night. When they slept better at night, body weights were better the next day. If they were in a good, this is the craziest one was when they were in a good mood going into practice, they could handle higher loads at practice and have a lower RPE coming out of it. So, for example, if they go into practice in a great mood, they could have like some of the highest GPS loads, some of the highest heart rate loads of the season, but you would see RPEs being like a 2 and a 3, whereas days where you would see like their mood score be like a 4 or a 5, 1 to 5, so 4 and 5 being the worst. And then you're like, man, like you look at their RPE and you're like, geez, like this was really hard for you to. And then you look at the GPS data and you're like, okay, like this shouldn't have been hard for you at all. Like, oh, you're just in a bad mood. So to see the relationship between mood and on the field performance and RPE, and like, I mean, they were able to handle bigger loads when they were in a better mood. And I think that really helped us, again, going back to the education curriculum, like it made us push even more from an environment standpoint making sure guys were in a good mood and enthusiastic heading into practice. Music at practice, cracking jokes, talking a little smack, kind of in between drills. But by doing that and making sure the tempo is going and really pushing Coach Browse's mission, and the way that he wants things done, and it all goes back to him because it's so great working for him because these are things that he's been coaching for 5 years longer than I've been alive, and so to things that he knew, but to us for be able to put data on it, it's always like, man, this guy's always one step ahead of us, and to see the data match up with things that he just intuitively knew has been very fascinating and very humbling,
Oh,
very humbling at the same time. So I think going back to that is what adjustments are we going to make? So now we have all this information, so we made big adjustments going into the 2014 season. So we did a lot more to take care of soft tissue. We tried to make sure guys were in a great mood, being enthusiastic, upbeat, going into practice. From a nutrition standpoint, it really kind of took care of itself with the NCAA rule coming out, where we could start doing like the enhanced snack type deal. So we had our enhanced snack program, which has been big, and now we're actually getting a dining hall built, which will open at the beginning of fall. So some of these things kind of took care of themselves, but again, the data kind of told you, hey, we need to put more eggs in it. Things we were already doing, but they're even more important than what we thought. And we found 10, 15 different things. I'm not going to bore you with all of them, and we'll talk about some of that when we present in July. But again, if we try to do 10 to 15 things, none of them are going to come out well. So we really wanted to pick two or three things that we thought we could really hammer home for the 2014 season, and I think we did a good job of that between the nutrition department, athletic and applied performance, and teaming up with our athletic trainers, and really across the whole athletic department. Everybody came together, and I think it really is starting to work together. So, and a lot of that has to work. So we have a program at Baylor called Project One. And so that's where basically every department that touches our student athletes, compliance, academics, equipment, staff, um, life skills, Christian environment, so we have everybody's in these meetings once a month, and we'll sit down and talk about, hey, this is the things we have coming up on the calendar. We'll help communicate these things. So if we have a class check, a mid-semester grade check, we're putting that up on the monitors down in the weight room. And so we're all working together to help push each department's goals, and really just one fist working together. And I think it's been huge for our athletic department, and it's been a lot of fun to work with these other departments and kind of see how they work and what's important to them, and how we can help each other out. It's been, I think, a big eye opener for everybody involved, and I think the student athletes are really reaping the benefits of it.
wow.
So that was an opener. Sorry.
Yeah,
Hey.
that was awesome. Wow. So let's go back two steps. First of all,
Okay.
mood is indirectly proportional to RPE in practice. Positive mood, negative, low
Yeah.
RPE.
Correct.
So, with that being said, are there things done on the fly then where, say, you guys know something's happened that maybe a joke can't fix? Like, some now would the mood be like something bad happened in the family, or would it just be like, I'm just kind of being a jerk today and I just want to mope?
Yeah. I think that's where the relationship with the student athlete is incredibly important. I, my biggest concern, and really our biggest concern, we talk about it all the time with our whole staff, is everybody. I be careful saying everybody making these grand statements. There are a lot of people that are really focused on the technology side of things, and we have some really cool pieces of technology. We have the GPS, we have a MegaWave. We're actually getting TMG here in a couple weeks, the
Nice.
tensiomyography, which is going to be
Yeah.
great. But at the end of the day, like, we're dealing with human beings, and I have kids. I'm sure people watching this have kids. Like, there's going to come a time where, as a coach, you're dealing with other people's kids. Like, This is somebody's son. This is somebody's daughter, and we need to make sure that we're treating them as such and treating them with respect. We're not trying to herdle cattle through the weight room, and we're not trying to herd cattle out onto the practice field, whatever it may be. Like, we need to make sure we have great relationships with our athletes. And so when we see these stress scores come up, or we see mood, bad for a couple of days in a row, or we see sleep poor for a couple of days in a row, we have to have a good enough relationship with our guys and girls to be able to go up to them and be like, hey, what's going on? And they have to be comfortable enough to be able to talk to you. And then, to be able to have these types of conversations, it can't just be, all right, what's your wellness? What's your mood? And then you're out, boom, you're on to the next person. Like, you have to make sure we really maintain a human element. And that's something, again, we talk about it all the time as a staff. And it really helps when those types of things come up, man. What is going on? You've been only sleeping 3 or 4 hours for the last, 4 or 5 weeks. Well, I've been having a fight with my girlfriend. This is going on at home. And then having knowing what to say and when to say it, or knowing when not to say anything is okay. Let's go out there. Let's have a great practice. Let's come back in. Swing by my office and we'll talk about it after the fact. I think I'm gonna be a little bit wrong on this percent, but I believe it's right at only 48% of kids now come from a traditional home, which is a fascinating number. So that means over 50% of the kids that we're training may not have mom and dad at home. They may have been raised by their grandparents. And so their ability to cope or talk or deal with things may not be there. And if you look at, the easily accessible with prescription drugs, weed, alcohol, whatever it may be, and a decrease, I think, in communication skills. Like, a lot of people can't do, what you and I are doing right now. We're sitting here talking. The ability for kids to do that anymore, I think, is decreasing because it's all Twitter, Facebook, text message. Yeah, 100%. And I'm sure. I mean, right now there's times where I want to grab my phone right now, and you and I are still talking. Like, the attention span is so low. So, how can we build relationships and get these people to get the kids to focus for a little bit longer, get them to really care, or understand that, hey, they may not have a father at home, but Coach Althoff, Coach whoever, hey, he treats me like I'm his son, and therefore I can come in and talk to him about whatever it may be, and to have that doors open policy. It's a constant struggle, and there are times where, man, you just want to pull the blinds down and shut that door and get your stuff done, but you can't do it, and that's the thing that we kind of struggle with every day, because you get around that midday lull where all you want to do is get work done. But that's the time when athletes are coming through, and you gotta be available for them. So
So
I hope that kind of answered your question.
yes, and it leads into kind of the next part, which would be, so when do you think? Because there's also kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, almost like a confidentiality type thought when they're coming to you. But when do you go and take that as the applied performance director and say, there's things going on in this kid's life. We need to back him down in practice, or we need to, we may need to change some things with this guy because of something he's going through. If he's not going to the coaching staff with it,
Yeah.
because this is like going back to building the relationships with the kid. I mean, if this could be something that would be, I don't want to say deemed as backstabbing, but that might almost be how they take it. Where do you see that line kind of being translucent?
Well, first and foremost, we have a fantastic team chaplain, Wes Yeary, who's incredible, and there's not a person in the athletic department that does not really respect Wes. And so we're very fortunate to have a guy like that on our staff. And, he comes down and does Bible study with our staff once a week. He's been extremely helpful in those types of scenarios, because almost everybody is comfortable going in and talking to him about those things. And with the Christian component that we have at Baylor University, we're very blessed to be able to have him around. I think, from a performance standpoint, there's got to be that conversation with the athlete where, listen, I'm going to keep what you told me, like the dirt of that, I'm going to keep that private between me and you. but you do need to let your position coach know. Like there's got to be that face to face with the athlete where it's, hey, listen, we know you got stuff going on, but like man to man, like I'm here for you, but you got to make sure your position coach knows as well. Like, and I think that protects the performance coach. But I also think the position coach is entitled to know too, because we're one big family, and I think we all, if we're informed, we can help give each other the benefit of the doubt. At the same point, it's important for us to talk to the student athlete about part of being an adult is fighting through these things. We say that there's no new problem under the sun. If you look at you read the Bible, the same things that people were dealing with in the Bible thousands of years ago, we're still dealing with today. You know, so these things have been going on for thousands of years. None of these problems are new, but it's all about how you handle it and part of being an adult. So if you want me to treat you like an adult, then that means we have to learn how to handle these situations like an adult as well. And there's going to be give and take, and they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to surprise you and do some fantastic things. We got to let them know that we're going to be there for them throughout the struggle, good, bad, positive, or indifferent.
Awesome. Awesome. So then let's go back to the next thing. All the toys. The awesome toys. There's nobody that likes toys more than me when it comes to this stuff. How do you take something as complicated as the Omega Wave and transform that information into something that is legible to your athletes and your coaching staff?
From an Omega Wave, golly, so much great information, right?
Right.
We're very fortunate. Our staff is good friends with Landon Evans, and he's been really influential with us throughout this whole process. So I want to give credit where credit's due. He's good, and some of the first advice he gave us was start small. Not everything's important. Start small with the population. Start small with what you look at, and I think that really has saved us on the front end. So we've always started with a smaller population than what we could handle. We've always started looking at less things than what was out there. Even if transition to the catapult, you're looking at 400 lines of data per period of practice. I mean, come on. So really, Coach Nelson and myself, some of the other performance coaches on staff, Coach Ruth, Coach Caton, we'll look at 10 to 15 things. Now, when it comes to relaying that information to other people, it might be a once a week, it might be once every 2 weeks conversation, and it might not be anything at all, because I think here's what we found was at the end of the 2013 season, our biggest takeaway was our head coach is really damn good, and he's really good at his job, and his ability to instinctively manipulate what was going on at practice was it was fascinating, because we very rarely would go more than in camp. It was basically two practices and then a day off, or like a half practice on that day. Our Tuesday, Wednesday practice in season is typically 60 to 70% of what a game load is. Our Thursday practice is between 45 and 55% of what a game load is. So for us to, again, he's been coaching 37 years. Our D coordinator's been coaching 37 years. So who are we to say that they need to be doing something different, especially when the data is saying on the front end that they're doing everything great. So really, I think our job is, what we did is we took this information and we spun it backwards as, okay, if the loading is appropriate, now what can we do from the performance side of things to allow them to handle that appropriate load more consistently day in and day out? Because if the loading's good and now something bad happens, then it's nobody's fault but our own. Like, we have to make sure, injuries happen. Really there's two reasons. One is something freaky happened and there's nothing you could do about it. The second reason is something happened that the athlete was not prepared for and they could have been prepared for it. So what can we do on the front end, in January and February heading into spring ball? What can we do in June and July heading into fall camp to help them prepare for what's going on? I think the biggest thing that the GPS has shown us is you're really looking at almost 4 to 5 different seasons throughout the year. Spring ball is its own beast.
Mm-hmm.
Fall camp is its own beast. Non-conference schedule, the way we do it, we go 3 on the front end. That's its own beast. Now you got conference play is a completely different deal. And then bowl prep is a completely different monster of its own because depending on the makeup of
Yeah.
your team, you might be playing young guys because you know what you got in your old guys. And it could be the other way around. So depending on how injuries shake out, bowl prep is it can be a really strange deal and a lot of variance from year to year to year. So really it was catapult. Okay, where are our heart rate zones at throughout practice? What's a typical volume throughout practice? If you're getting ready to run a marathon, you don't run marathons to get ready for a marathon. So it's not like we have to have an entire practice load in a 2.5 hour training session during the summer. Like that's not what it's about. But are the energy systems, are they lined up and in tune to be able to handle that load when it comes? This is going to sound crazy, maybe not, but it probably grandiose. Okay, it's not going to sound crazy though. For us, the way we play football, as fast as we play, it's still an aerobically
Yes.
dominant deal for us. And we run plays every 15 seconds, yada yada yada. But still, like, if that aerobic system isn't humming and isn't well developed, of course they're going to go glycolytic. But if that aerobic system is working well and that alactic system is powerful and those things are synced up and they know how to work together, then most of the time they're going to stay below anaerobic threshold. And so then that really kind of shifted the way we looked at our summer training and our summer conditioning. But anyway, again, I totally
No, that's awesome.
politicalized your response and danced around your direct question. But so with the mega wave, we just really only look at 4 things. We'll look at vagal tone, the omegametry. We look at the anaerobic score and the aerobic score. That's really the 4 things you look at on a day-to-day basis, and then really just look at them like basically like they're buoys in the water. And then as soon as if you see a buoy kind of shaking, and then we're going to dive deeper and figure out what the heck's going on and what's making that thing shake in the water. But if those things are fine, then we're going to focus on some different things because otherwise you're just going to dive down into a rabbit hole and you're not going to find your way out. So
Right.
with catapult, we're going to look at heart rate, which I think is kind of underrated. From everybody wants to focus on the GPS because that's the sexy thing to look at, but when it comes down to it, body weight from a day-to-day standpoint, heart rates are really 2 big indicators of performance, and then changes of direction, accelerations and decelerations. The left and right stuff is a kind of important depending on the position. And then some of the basically velocities over 75%. But even that can get funny because I just had a conversation this weekend. I'm with the guy. We were talking. Okay, so it's you set the velocity bands up so 90% or above of their maximum velocity, and it's set off of a 40-yard dash or whatever it may be. But if you have a distance within that band, let's say it's 50 yards, like that's 50 yards of their 40-yard like top end velocity. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not running at, if they're running a 10, okay, if they're running a 10-yard in or a 15-yard route, whatever it may be, they might be running at 100% of their max velocity of a 10-yard time or 100% of their max velocity of a 20-yard time, but that won't show up as a 90+% velocity of their 40-yard dash. Am I making any sense here?
No,
So
completely.
you kind of have to understand, like, it's a fantastic tool and it gives you what it says it's going to give you. I mean, it's phenomenal, but you have to understand the limitations also of what it's giving you. And then I think that's where, I talked about it before, but like an over limitation on technology, I think is really frustrating. And my big concern is I worry if we're losing our coach's eye. So reliant on technology that, we're not, are we watching practice as intently as we could have if we wouldn't have these big fancy toys to tell us what's going on, you know? And are we losing our ability to think critically and kind of put pieces together on our own, or are we just waiting for the data to kind of tell us what to do? Because there's going to be limitations in data no matter what we look at. So,
Yeah, I think that that's an awesome point because I actually was lucky enough to be up in Boston this weekend at Art Horn's gig, and everybody always wants to talk about how we monitor things, because we're lucky to have an Omega Wave and do that stuff. And I, the way I said it to them was, the thing that people need to be careful with is none of these things, and no matter how you put it together in your decision tree or you're planning for whatever you may be doing, none of these technologies are a deity. I mean, they're computers,
yeah,
and like if you see a guy who, however you're setting your decision trees off of whatever information you're compiling, who's they're bouncy, man. They're ready to go. Like, it may say the cost is high, but maybe you had this kid scheduled to back down some stuff, but he's rip roaring and rolling.
yeah,
Maybe you let him go and you just pay the cost tomorrow
yeah,
and you go that way. But that's awesome. And I had another conversation with someone, and it was really almost identical to like what you were saying about your coach. I mean, now Moon hasn't been doing it for 5 years longer than I've been alive. If he was, he would have been coaching since he was one. But he, uh, he does well with practice, and as much as I hate the word, he tapers it well through the season.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I was asked, like, how much data do you give to the coaches with what you're doing? And I'm like, not really that much. I think I've given them two pieces of information in the 5 years. It's mostly, how do we need to prepare the kids?
Right,
And if we're doing the right thing and handling, the guys well off the court, then practice is fine. They can handle those stressors.
yeah,
We change the secondary stuff,
yeah,
you know. And I think that a lot of people think too much needs to come of it
yeah,
because it's expensive, you
right,
know, like all of it's expensive. And
yeah,
they think that because it's expensive, it needs to, you know, yield Thor's hammer.
yeah.
But
And it's more like, look how smart I am.
mhm,
Versus, I mean, does the coach really need to know some of this stuff? I mean, I think in some cases maybe, but I mean, we again at Baylor we just look at it like we are support staff. Like our job is to put the head coach in a position that he can succeed, give him great athletes, and do a great job preparing our guys for the loads that we know are going to happen. And if those loads are appropriate, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we're ready. And um, really, like, we want our coaches in the film room focus on filming. We want our coaches on the road recruiting, like doing what they need to do to be better football coaches. Let us handle everything behind the scenes, and you guys just focus on football. We'll focus on performance. If something comes up that's a big red flag, absolutely we'll talk about it. But in the meantime, you do your thing, we'll do our thing. We'll stay behind the scenes. Let's go win a heck of a lot of football games.
yes,
And a really good friend of the program. I want to make sure I say this because I think it makes a lot of sense. But Rob Panarello is a very good friend of ours, and he was always reminding me, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but nobody's entitled to their own facts.
mm-hmm,
And as we interpret this data, it's okay, it's factual, maybe, like this is actually what's happening. But as far as why it's happening, in most cases, it's opinion. Now, that's not saying it's not grounded on some scientific things, and like there are very smart people that, hey, maybe their opinions are more like facts than others. I would say mine's more on the opinion side when I talk, but we have to know that. We have to know there are limitations to the data. We have to know at the end of the day we're just guessing, and none of us, as no matter how much we read, none of us really know what the heck we're talking about. We're just making educated guesses and really trying to put our opinion out there. And hopefully we're reading a ton, and our opinions are based more on factual data than just guesswork. But at the end of the day, we're just giving our opinion on what needs to happen. So,
right. And then talking about things that have happened in the past based on the data you have, again,
correct.
is not an indicator of what is coming in the future.
Right.
It's just a fact of what has happened that could lead to a greater educated decision leading forward.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all
But it's
just
not. It's there's no guarantee that something just because it happened last year doesn't mean that it's going to happen this year. And there are so many things that are tied into performance. You just got to be really careful making 100% assertions. Just kind of, always got to give yourself room to back out. You don't want to put yourself in a corner.
mm-hmm. Oh no, absolutely, man, absolutely. Andrew, this was awesome.
All right, man.
This was really awesome. I really appreciate you taking some time out here and rapping with us a bit. People are gonna love this, man.
I hope so.
Yeah, no, awesome talk. Thank you so much. Look forward to having you up here in July, man. It's gonna be rad.
Really, really excited, man. It's going to be fun, and we'll bring hopefully we'll bring a bunch of good stuff up and really just kind of talk about our progression over the last 5 or 6 years and what we used to do and how we've changed it and what we do now, and we're really gonna give some good information. We're not gonna hold much back, and whatever people want to know, we don't have any secrets, so we have no problem sharing. So,
Brilliant, man. Love it, love it. Can't wait to see you up here, brother.
all right, man.
All right, have a great night.
Hey, you too.
Thank
Later.
you. Huge thanks to today's guest, 2015 presenter and Director of Applied Performance at Baylor University, Andrew Althoff. Guys, I mean, it's gems all over the place in that talk. I mean, it's the wealth of knowledge this guy has and the ability that he has to communicate it and share his experiences are really, really fantastic. And just the fact that he's telling you flat out, they've got no secrets, man, that tells you they're doing things well. Because anybody trying to hide things, you got to kind of wonder what's going on, right? And the fact that they're going to come up here in July and just kind of throw it all out there on the table and say, hey, this is what we do. Take it for what it's worth. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it, and let's all get better. I mean, how big time is that? But as all with everything that we do and with all our talks, guys, I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you do, please share it. If you have any comments or thoughts, post them below on Facebook or on the website or on YouTube itself. Shoot it out there on Facebook or Twitter. Share it. Spread the word, guys. And as always, we really hope to see you here July 16th and 17th at the University of Richmond for the 2015 seminar. Guys, it's going to be big time. Really excited. The speakers are starting to send some info on their talks. And holy mackerel, it's going to be out of this world. Cannot wait. Hope to see you here. Thanks for taking the time to listen, guys. And we look forward to seeing you in a few weeks here in July.